Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am out here with my two buddies, Mike and Jordan. We're going to do a little cross-country flight around Lake Mountain, which is right here in front of me. I'm currently on an 18-meter Ozone Sirocco 3. They are both somewhere behind me. And yeah, today's video, I wanted to talk about why you should always fly with a reserve. I know this is a little bit of a controversial topic. You know, some people say, if you're not doing any acro, if you don't ever fly high, you shouldn't fly with a reserve. And my opinion is that you should always, always, always fly with a reserve. And the reason that I say that is because, let me pose you a scenario, right? Say you're flying low, 10, 20 feet off the ground, okay? Not in a spot where you could throw a reserve. And you encounter a lot of turbulence. What's the first thing that you do? You typically climb. Right? If you hit some turbulence and you're really low, you try and climb up and get a little bit of altitude so you have more time to work things out. Well, you just went from an altitude where your reserve would not have helped to an altitude where your reserve now does help. So that's why I'm always a big advocate. Plus, there's this unknown variable in flying paramotors and also in aviation, and that's called weather. You know, it's the one thing that we as pilots cannot control. You know, I can't control what the weather's going to be like today or tomorrow or next week or any time, a matter of fact, right? And I don't know what the weather's going to be like in 10 minutes because sometimes it could go from nice and smooth to not very nice and smooth. And you never know what's going to happen that's going to lead you to needing it. So I'm a big advocate of, like, it's cheap insurance. You know, having a reserve is just cheap insurance. So I'm a big fan. I support it. You know, I try and always fly with a reserve, especially if I'm flying in the mountains, especially if I'm flying something a little bit of a hotter wing or I'm doing acro or whatever. I never do any of that stuff without a reserve. You know, another thing that I'll add when it comes to reserves, you know, let's just have a small little reserve talk for a second. You know, I think you should be happy and excited to use your reserve. Like, if you ever are in a situation where you need to throw your reserve, you're ever in a gnarly enough situation that your reserve is necessary, you should be excited to throw it. You should be just so excited to toss that sucker out and get it open and save your butt. There shouldn't be fear of a reserve. There shouldn't be resentment. There shouldn't be hesitation to throw a reserve. If you think you're in a situation or a scenario or environment where you need the reserve, throw it. Throw the reserve. You know, my saying is, like, when in doubt, throw it out. Like, if you're not sure, if something's going wrong and you're not entirely sure if you need your reserve or not, if you have altitude, try and work things out. Give yourself a little bit of time to find a solution to whatever problem it is that you're facing. But if you're not at high altitudes, you know, if you're cruising where I am at only like 100 feet or so, just throw the sucker. Just absolutely toss the sucker. Just get it out, baby. Get it out, throw it. You know, you don't want to be that guy that ended up hitting the ground without a reserve out. Because it's again, just cheap insurance. And, you know, another thing that I also want to mention is, like, accidental deployments. Yeah, I hear people talk about how or why they don't fly with reserves because they're worried about an accidental deployment. I think that's just silly. An accidental deployment is one of two things. Number one, you're careless with how you handle the actual bag in the air. You know, you're grabbing or you're bumping into it or something like that. Or number two, you don't do a very good pre-flight. Like, you should always, 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 always check your reserve. Check, make sure the rubber bands are still there. Check, make sure that the reserve is still firmly attached. Undo the Velcro, redo the Velcro, repack the reserve. You know, have the reserve checked every time you go and fly. You know, as your pre-flight, it should be, you know, one of the bigger things that you do. And then also have your reserve packed every year. You know, it costs a whopping like $50 to $100. You know, what's a $50 to $100 worth? You know, what's your life worth? Go out, have it packed, have it repacked, have it inspected, have it checked. Just make sure that that thing is in good shape. Because if you ever do need to throw it, if you ever do need to use it, you'll be really thankful that you had it taken care of. You'll be really thankful that you had it cared for and repacked and all of that stuff. And also, you know, one of the first things I do when I'm airborne is I reach down and I check it. So, you know, on the accidental deployments, as soon as I launch, you know, one of the first things I do is I reach down and I just double check that reserve is still there. You know, make sure that handle hasn't been pulled, make sure that it's still in good shape. And anytime that I go to do a, wing over or loops or any form of acro, even the positive acro, anything, even if I've done it 1,000 times, I double check my reserve before I go for the run. So if I climb up, I'm about to do a bunch of wing overs, reach down, check the reserve, okay, I'm good to go, now proceed with the wing overs. I'm always meticulous and double, triple checking that bad boy is there, ready to go, and ready for me to use if I need it.